Welcome back to the Nancy Levin Show. Today, we are talking about the whispers we receive that we tend to ignore because sometimes life is whispering to us that something isn't working, a job, a relationship, a way of being. But instead of listening, we minimize, we bargain, we cling to what's familiar. We soften the edges of our discomfort and tell ourselves, it's not that bad. But the truth is, those whispers don't go away. They only get louder until we're faced with a point of no return. A moment when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the fear of change. In this episode, I'm going to share with you my own point of no return and explore why we wait until things get unbearable to make a change, how we prolong our pain with excuses and rationalizations, and how to recognize the whispers in your life before they turn into screams. So first, we're going to look at why we ignore the intuitive whispers until things fall apart. We all have moments when our intuition nudges us, telling us something isn't right. So maybe it's the quiet voice saying, you deserve more. Or the uneasy feeling that a relationship, a job, a way of living no longer fits. But instead of acting, we dismiss those whispers as overthinking or dramatizing or fear. We minimize our discomfort by convincing ourselves, it's not that bad. I can make this work. Maybe I'm just being ungrateful. By softening the truth, we prolong the inevitable. Change doesn't happen until the discomfort becomes unbearable, until we're pushed to the edge of what we can tolerate. But you don't need to wait until your life falls apart to make change. Those intuitive hits you've been receiving are not random. They're wisdom. And ignoring them is only going to magnify your pain. So I want to share my point of no return, because sometimes we don't recognize our own point of no return until we're standing in it. If you know my story, you might have thought that my point of no return was the moment my then husband read my journals and discovered that I'd had an affair 8 years prior. But no, my point of no return came nearly 2 years later, when my then husband physically assaulted the man I'd had the affair with, 10 years after the fact. And that was the moment I made the commitment and declaration to not go back. It was the moment I filed for divorce. There had been countless whispers leading up to that moment. I knew for years that I was unhappy and afraid in my marriage. I told myself I could make it work even when it drained me to keep pacifying his rage. And I stayed because I feared the shame of leaving. But at my point of no return, I realized the pain of staying was greater than the fear of leaving. I couldn't bargain or soften or minimize anymore. I couldn't pretend everything was okay, and I couldn't protect him any longer. Your point of no return is a powerful moment of clarity. It's the moment you stop making excuses, you stop bargaining, you choose yourself. You don't need to wait for a dramatic breaking point to create that moment. It can begin with a single symbolic step. So what is your point of no return? And what is that single symbolic step you're willing to take to declare your own new beginning? Now let's look at how we prolong our pain with excuses and bargaining and minimizing. Because when we sense something isn't working out, our first instinct is often to avoid the hard truths. We soften the edges of reality, telling ourselves stories like, if I just try harder, it'll get better. I don't want to hurt anyone, so I'll just stay. Or maybe this is the best I can get. This bargaining creates a cycle of stuckness. We're not fully committed to staying, but we're also not brave enough to leave. And so we linger in the gray area, prolonging our pain and waiting for the situation to become unbearable before we finally act. And the longer you stay in that in-between space, the more it drains your energy, your confidence, and your clarity. Change doesn't have to come from a place of desperation. It can come from a place of choice. You can end the cycle of excuses and act now, knowing you deserve better. Your point of no return is a sacred moment. It's a line in the sand where you declare, I'm not going back. You don't have to wait for things to fall apart entirely to make that decision. The whispers in your life are there for a reason, and they're guiding you toward a better future. So ask yourself, what truth am I softening, minimizing, or bargaining with? What would it look like to trust myself enough to act now instead of waiting for the pain to grow any louder? Because the life you are longing for is waiting on the other side of your choice. And you deserve to step into it right now.